Calgary Expo 2015 obviously took place in Calgary. It was specifically April 16th to 19th, if my memory serves me correctly. Yeah, April 16th to 19th. It was the first 4-day event for the Calgary Expo, and was actually sold out for all 4 days. So today we're just going to be talking about it. And let me introduce everyone to my guest for this is Cody.
Hello, thanks for having me, Chris.
All right, well, let's get started. I guess the best place to start is the city itself. Yeah, you're from Calgary. I'm from Edmonton. I assume you don't really have much to say about like any stories about being in Calgary during that time.
Uh, Not really. I mean, living in Calgary wasn't as exciting, especially it was obviously before we met.
Yeah.
So it was pretty much just a solo trip with myself.
Yeah, so with me, it was like I think my first time in Calgary since the 2012 Calgary Expo, if my memory serves me correctly, and was just coming off another trip earlier that year, earlier that month actually. It's like 3 weeks there, and I only went for one day actually, and it was actually it was a pretty cool thing. Me and my friend there, we drove in Friday night to Calgary, and it was my buddy's. He's a good driver, but he's like an overly safe driver, if you understand what I mean by that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and just like he very slow, very cautious. He stresses out easy, and then he drives a truck, and we were staying at a hotel there, and he just didn't know where to find parking and anything, and he was like going in circles, stressing out. It was kind of funny. Then afterwards, after we parked, checked in, we got situated and went down Stevens Ave and drank a little bit, and then woke up the next day at like 6 in the morning for the con and everything. Just that hype and everything of it. Um, so yeah, and then after the con itself, we went to the Owen Hart grave. Have you ever been to the Owen Hart grave?
I have not.
Yeah, it was actually kind of interesting. We did it like we literally woke up the Sunday morning, and then we went to the Owen Hart grave, and then we left. But when you got there, it was like, where the hell am I? Where the hell is it? It's just a giant graveyard, right? And it's not like there's directions. It's not like it's an attraction or something, right? But I remember there was this like groundskeeper there. I guess it was an undertaker. um, he like gave me and my friend Ken a ride in a truck to the grave or whatever. And
Really?
yeah, like we got into his like work truck and we drove for like 5-10 minutes to the grave, and then he like gave us his like cell phone number, and he's like, when you guys are done, just give me a call back and I'll give you a drive back to the truck.
That's some service. Some
Yeah,
high-tech service.
yeah, for somebody who actually doesn't need to do any of that, and that's like pretty epic. The grave itself was like, I mean, that tombstone must be worth millions, right? They probably spared no expense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we
I,
just.
I've
Uh,
never thought about going to visit it.
yeah, do you think it's just a Calgary thing that the reason why you wouldn't want to visit it?
I don't think I've ever actually thought of it. I've never really visited anyone that was famous, their grave site. So also, there's so many grave sites in Calgary, you don't really know where to go.
Yeah, you definitely need to do some research online. That's what we had to do, and it's pretty far from the downtown. I remember we having to drive like 25 minutes or so.
Yeah, because you guys stayed at that hotel downtown, right?
Yeah, what was it? It was
Is it a Ramada?
yeah, it was the Ramada there, and it was just
Yeah.
like off of Stevens or whatever, and yeah, it was a good hotel. Can't say nothing negative about it. It looked really fancy on the inside. Kind of miss going there, but definitely not worth the money for a nostalgic trip, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So that's really about the city, I guess. What about the weather? What can you comment on the weather?
I remember the weather being pretty hit or miss. I know it's pretty much cloudy for the whole, because I went 4 days. I remember it being windy. I remember it raining, and that's when they used to always make everyone wait outside in these pre-made lines. Like the
Yeah.
back of the BMO Center is really odd. Yeah,
Yeah.
no matter if it rained or snowed, they wouldn't let you go inside. They just watch and make fun of you.
Yeah, it was a pretty interesting experience. So I guess this is a good enough transition to talk about the actual layout of the con. So it was a very interesting year that year, and over the next few years, like every year had a very different layout than before, which I found interesting. What do you remember about the layout?
I remember, besides it being packed to the nines, I remember the Big Four had the, what was it, on the lower floor, they had the, obviously the photo ops, the top floor had, but some comic artists, I think.
Yes, and I believe that's where the cosplayers was. Where's the photo like was the food? I know like many years later we always went to the food gallery. Was the bottom still? Did the bottom also have the food still? The little food court that they
Yeah.
throw in there?
Yeah, I think up until, what was it, 2016, they had the food in the lower. Then 2017, I think they ditched it, or maybe 2018. But I remember all the food vendors were always on the bottom of the big four.
Yeah. So it was
And
just
that one, yeah,
right.
not to digress to a different con, but I remember that one year where it was like dead. The
Yeah.
first time in like 5 years, there was like no one in line for food.
Right, and I think the photo ops being in the big four just kind of attracted people for the food or whatever because there's almost more people in the food than the actual like in the bottom of the big four than like in the actual BMO. So in the BMO you had your basic vendors and then you also had your autographs. So like if you had a photo and an autograph you had to do quite the journey from the photos to where the autographs were.
Yeah, and especially on like Saturday and Sunday when it was like a nightmare to like move between buildings.
Yeah, I think there was like 80 to 100,000 people there. So having like for me, like the modern expo, everything's all joined together, and there's been never too many photo ops I've really wanted. But did you ever like on a Saturday need to get an autograph followed by a photo, and you were just like struggling to manage to get between A and B?
I remember, funny, there's only one, what was it, duo photo op that I actually missed. So I kind of had to eat the $80 cost and then go to their autograph booth after, I think on like the Sunday because it was just too much going on and I couldn't make the photo.
Did they still like? I think they got rid of it at least in the 2021 Expo. I don't know what they did for this year's Expo. But like they had the grounds itself was very active. They had those like larpers and everything, and on the outside of the BMO Center, like in between, just on the grounds itself. Was that also the case in the 2015 con?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. So, I guess vendors, artist alley. Any specific like artists or vendors that really stuck out that year for you?
I think, I'd have to look it up, but I think Scott Campbell came. He was like he's known for drawing Marvel, like Spider-Man and stuff like that. I still have those prints
Mm-hmm.
I've shown you, but I don't know if it was that year. But other than that, never really like tried to spend too much time in Artist Alley.
Yeah.
Vendors start to always seem to be the same.
Well, at that year, was it
Like,
the same for you? Did you still get that vibe?
well, compared to like 2014, yeah, I'd say it was pretty much like same. I felt like it was the same vendors, especially when you're spending 4 days there. You kind of noticed it was the same between the 2 years.
Yeah, for me, I remember the vendors that really stuck out was obviously again this is my first time at the con since the 2012 con, and 2012 con you didn't really have the opportunity to really browse due to like everything that happened that year. But like so this was essentially my introduction to the Calgary Expo, and this was the first time I've seen these vendors that by now we've known all too well. But like the Tower of Teas was pretty like at the time was a really stand out and looked really great and everything. Of course,
Yeah.
Lemon Heaven, and that was my introduction to Lemon Heaven. And yeah, like if you're ever in the Alberta and you go to a con, those lemonades are pretty damn good. I can't explain it.
Yeah, they keep you going with all that sugar.
Yeah, for sure. And then you have to do 2,000 bathroom trips, and I think they're like pretty cheap too. I can't remember. Ain't it like obviously like the prices now don't reflect the prices in 2015. I don't think they were any different, but I think it was like $6 for a large now, and it's like half a liter. It's like almost like a liter, maybe even more.
Yeah. I think even if they did increase prices, like from last year, I think it was maybe $1 or two compared to 2015. Like it wouldn't be noticeable.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess really for photos, like I was only there for the guests, so I didn't really spend too much time at the guests, and nothing too much that really sticks out off my memory. I guess any last minute things before we jump into the next section?
I just remember for 20, I think it was like 2014, 2016, the artist alley was always so overcrowded. It wasn't even worth, unless you needed someone specific.
Why do you think
Like
that
R.L.
was? Was there just
Stein. I think R.L. Stein was the only one I was ever interested. But then I remember walking to that area, and it was just so overcrowded.
and why do you
Especially on
think
the
that was?
weekend.
Do you think there was just the demand was there and the demand doesn't exist in the modern con, or
I think the demand was there because, like a lot of people are into, you know, the artists and getting their comic books or their prints signed. And I remember always reading comments how, like, remember the last few years, Calgary, when they would do announcements, and if they didn't do like artist alley announcements, the comments were very kind of
aggressive?
resentful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
resentful. Yeah, for sure. I mean, we'll get to it, and then maybe this is a perfect transition to the guest list. And I might as well start with the guest who canceled, and that was the main reason I was going. But he's technically not like he's considered an artist, right? And that was Stan Lee, right? So like
Yeah.
he also like attracted the other artists. But yeah, he like Stan Lee was kind of funny because I wanted to meet him in 2012 when I went to the Calgary Expo. Never happened because of everything that happened that year. Then the 2013 he went there, and I just didn't go to the 2013. I don't know. I don't remember why I didn't go, but I think my friends who went to the 2012 just had some like resentment and trust issues. Like, hey, is it worth going if going through this? I know my friend in 2012 he bought a Stan Lee photo, waited 6 hours in line, and they cut off the line and they just refunded him. Didn't even compensate him for that 6 hours he waited in line. Never got the photo. Yeah, and then so like I was by 2015 Calgary Expo. I was big into photo ops, and I'm like, I need to get the Stan Lee photo. Here we go. I just spent thousands going on to my trip earlier in the month, and I'm like, hey, I just want Stan Lee, and ended up getting all the photos and everything. Paid for the photos that I got, and then boom, he cancels a week before the con.
Yeah, that leaves a bit of a sour
Yeah,
taste in the
so
mouth.
now it's like two out of the two times I've tried to meet him, they've been just like neglected and everything. Some other guests that were there, we did pull up a list here. Let's kind of go through these off the top of my head. We got the Amell brothers, and then the actor who plays Diggle, David Ramsey, I believe is his name.
Yeah,
Did you get a photo with them?
I did. I got a separate photo with all of them.
Oh, so you didn't get a group photo, you just got three
No,
individual photos?
no, because I was doing so many photo ops that expo. It was just their duo photos just never worked for me.
Any stories about any of those photo ops with the Amell brothers? No,
I
just
know the Stephen Amell, who's the Green Arrow. He was super friendly. He actually was like giving hugs to everyone, and yeah, it was just super positive with him. He was super humble, I would say, and that's kind of when like peak Arrow was happening. What was that, like season 3?
Yeah, season 2, 3. Yeah, it was like really, really like it was in the height of Arrow and everything. I remember when I got my group photo and he was just like walked by like just loud pop, man. Just people started to cheer and go nuts.
Yeah.
My story was a little bit embarrassing, actually. The first photo I do in all these years that are like as an actual actor, and I guess I got that starstruck. And I don't think I actually ever told you this story. So wrestling, Stephen Amell's a big wrestling fan, as you know, and
Yeah.
I was wearing a Sting shirt for that convention, and just like of the icon, and this was like shortly after, like this was only months after, like 3 weeks after Sting's wrestling match at WrestleMania, right? And Steve Amell posted a couple of months earlier. He posted a little meme thing because they WWE referred to Sting as the Vigilante Sting, but that was Arrow, so they posted up like, "Hey, it's the Vigilante," and it was a picture of Arrow on the Titantron instead. And I went up to Steve Amell and I'm like, "Oh, you're not the real Vigilante. You're the Sting's the real Vigilante." Trying to make some jokes at it, but I think he
Yeah.
took it personally, and he was just like, "F whatever," right? Like, but I know David Ramsey got a good kick out of it. He laughed, but I was definitely kind of embarrassed, but that he didn't react like he
The
didn't.
way you thought he would.
Yeah, so that was kind of awkward. Neil Patrick Harris. This was his only convention ever to this day, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was super salty about that. Wasn't he announced? Like he was announced the Thursday or like the Wednesday or something. Like he was announced on
It
the
was
Thursday that he was going to be there on Friday or something like that.
well. I remember I was in school and he got announced while I was writing an exam. So I went on. It was like it was like a random time. It was like 1:30 in the afternoon on Wednesday, and they immediately released autographs and photo ops. And I somehow got really lucky, and I got like group 6 or 7, so it was like right at the tail end of it because I know he like sold out immediately.
Oh man, I actually do remember being at home. I was also in school and I didn't have class that day, so I was literally just at home and I was just on Facebook and I was like, I don't remember the details exactly what I was doing, but I refreshed the daytime like the second they posted it. I was there and I could have got a photo and I probably would have been group one, but I was only there on the Saturday and my buddy worked on the Friday, so it's not like we could have just impromptu, hey, let's go, you know.
Right.
Probably these days I would have, but back then, you know, like, so I missed that opportunity to get that photo of him. But yeah, how was meeting him? Like, what did you say? Did he say anything, or was it just a quick "hey, bye" kind of thing?
For how busy it was, he definitely still like said something to you. Like he, obviously just asked how you're doing, and it was a pretty surreal moment. I feel like that was probably one of the peak, like for the Calgary / Emily Expo. I would say that was kind of like the peak of the mountain for like bringing in a guest of that caliber.
Yeah, for sure.
In my opinion, like it was pretty like an amazing experience to meet him. I know like everyone who's getting a photo or autograph were just ecstatic because I remember going to the autograph area just to like see how people were reacting, and it just seemed like it was a really positive experience for him, which I'm shocked that he never did anything again.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. Definitely one of my bigger regrets that I have of just not being able to meet him, and like one of those things. Speaking of regrets, another actor who was there who's no longer with us. I'm gonna butcher his name. Is like Rene Aberjoris. He plays Odo in Star Trek Discovery, who's like the main race of. It's like Star Trek. Sorry, not Discovery. Deep Space Nine. He the whole story. It's the first Star Trek that had an overarching storyline, and his race was like a changeling, and in a different part of the world, they're like the different quadrants of the galaxy. They're like gods, and he somehow didn't know who he was and everything, and so the entire story of all 7 seasons of Deep Space Nine are with this actor. And yeah, I wasn't watching Star Trek at the time, so I missed this photo, and I believe he died like 3 or 4 years ago now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's one of those things. And then actually, he was a Voyager actor, and I don't know what the first year he went was, but Garrick Wong was from um, that year also. Was there? Do you remember if he was there in 2013 or 2012 or anything?
I know he was there in 2013 and 2014, I believe. He
Yeah,
came like consecutively, like what, every year up until like
2017. No,
2017,
2018. 2018 was the
2018.
yeah. No, 2019 I think.
Yeah, because then he started doing like he started to become the host of the expo
Yeah, he was doing
with all the
all.
panels.
Yeah, he was doing all those yeah, panels and stuff because basically he like I don't want to say overstayed his welcome, but like nobody was getting photos with him, right? So he just became like a mediator, right?
Yeah,
Um, so there was Norman Reedus, I guess, canceled also.
yeah, because he was there in 2013. That was the first time I went to the Calgary Expo, and I remember getting a photo with the Boondock Saints, and then I guess yeah, he came back in 2015 and canceled.
Yeah, and then you had here, I'm just gonna list them off, and then we'll go into stories. Let's do that. And so you had you're gonna have to help me with some of these pronunciations, by the way. But you had Peter Cullen. Do you know who he is or what he's from?
Yeah, Peter Cullen is not the voice of Optimus Prime.
Oh, right. And then you had
Yeah.
Arthur Darville.
Arthur Durville. I don't know who that is.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I don't know myself.
Oh, you know who he is? He was he was in the first season of Legends of Tomorrow.
Oh, and
He
he's
was
from
Rick Hunter.
yeah, and he was from Doctor Who, and also that's where his like
Yeah,
notoriety came from. That's kind of massive. I really wish I would have met him. I didn't even
me too.
realize that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you had I don't know who this one is. Kirsten Bourier Van Straten.
That's a blank for me, sir.
Yeah, for sure. Then you had some cosplayers, and the cosplayers like at the time was just still right, fresh and hot. Jessica Negri came in, and at the time, like I believe she was like dating somebody who lived in Alberta, so she was at these cons, but her lines were always so massive.
Oh yeah.
Did you? And then we had Yaya Han, who was also there, and she is a pretty big cosplayer. Ivy Doom Kitty. I don't remember any other of the cosplayers off the my top of my head, but we also had I mentioned Jason Momoa was there. Jewel Strati. I don't know.
Jewel Jewel State.
Yeah, I don't know who that is. I assume you don't. Um,
No.
Scott Wilson, who was from The Walking Dead, who also has passed since then.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, and then we also had Philip Blake, who was the governor from The Walking Dead, show up too, and that was kind of like what was it, season 4 or 5 for The Walking Dead, so still going pretty strong. The
yeah,
show.
yeah. They're in the final season, but that show should have ended a long time ago. But
Yeah.
conversation for another time. Then we like Matt Ryan,
Yeah.
Gwendolyn Christie, and I think that's basically all we kind of. Oh, and then there was also Haley Atwell and Brett Dalton and Ming Yan Wen. So there had some like we had some Marvel flair also. So that's all the actors we found. There might be some more actors that we didn't mention. If there are, let us know in the comments below. So let's go over some stories. Who did you meet other than who we've already discussed?
Let's see. I met Jason Momoa and Haley Atwell. I remember their lines were outside.
Yeah, and they
Definitely. Go ahead.
yeah, sorry, they had that tent there, and that's I believe
Yeah.
for Aquaman, who wasn't Aquaman at the time, for Momoa, they actually used the tent for him.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, what was it? 2015. So he didn't shoot Aquaman for what, years?
Years, yeah, man. Well, Justice League came out 2014, I believe. So yeah, and that was his debut as. Yeah, I don't know. You also had Trish and Lita were there. Who I forgot to
Yeah.
mention, and I met them. Did you meet them?
I did,
Did you?
and they, I guess I have kind of a negative experience with them. I remember they had no one in their line, so they were just kind of hanging out together at Lita's booth,
Mm-hmm.
and because they were next to each other. I remember coming up and like paying for a photo with the two of them, and they were so standoffish, like they were just too busy with their own conversation.
Really?
Kind of, yeah, and it really like made me a little disappointed because obviously that was kind of like the peak time when I was watching wrestling.
Yeah.
Like when I first got into it, it
Yeah.
was like WrestleMania like 2021, so it was a little disheartening to they didn't like give me their time of day, even though I just gave them like $80
See,
for a 3-second photo.
Yeah, for me, I had a very different experience. I didn't meet Lita because I met Lita a year earlier, and in my experiences, she's very standoffish. Just, I mean, I guess it comes from like just all the cons or whatever that she's been to, and all the fans and everything. But I met Trish, and I don't really remember too much about the photo itself, and it was one of those "hey, bye" kind of things. But I look back at my photo, and I had this like biggest smile on my face, and it's like I started watching wrestling around 2000. It was WrestleMania 12 in '96, so like I was watching wrestling before she debuted, and I was only like 9 years old. So here I am, a 13-year-old little kid, right? And Trish is finally debuting, right? So like, and she's the Canadian, probably one of my earlier celebrity crushes, and I met her, and I guess that is reflected in. I've been told that's like you can tell you used to have a crush on her and everything like that. Like, hell, I still do. um, yeah, and then the friend I went with he met Ming Na Wen or whatever. I think I pronounced that right. Did you meet her?
I did not.
Yeah, who else did you meet?
Uh, Obviously, like I was saying before, Jason Momoa and Haley Atwell with their massive lines, and they were both, super nice and didn't like rush, even though the photographer kept like trying to get them to move along. They definitely went at their own pace and like took a photo however you kind of wanted it to, which was pretty neat. For how big their lines were, so they definitely took their time with the photo op, even though it was only a few seconds. They wanted you to make sure you got your money well spent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, especially with Hallie Atwell, like coming off the Cap fame and everything, right? I don't know why I didn't meet her. I should have met her. I don't even remember why, to be honest with you. It's so long ago. I think maybe it was just because I only had a day and I was like trying to get as many photos as possible, and I didn't want to cram it all together.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's like my photos were just. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. No, you go ahead.
Yeah, because I was only there for a day, I did the Amel Brothers. I did just Trish. I was going to do Trish and Lita, that's right. The reason why I didn't do Trish and Lita is not because I didn't meet Lita before, is because there might have been a conflict and I was too worried about the time and everything. So just doing Trish gave me like an additional half an hour to do the photo. Other than that, I did just Jessica, Yaya Han. I got a pro op of Yaya Han. I just met Jessica at the booth and got a photo of her. And I was actually kind of salty because one of my photos I've always wanted to meet Jessica and Igari with is like, I believe it's like she does the armored Harlequin cosplay, or did the early armored Harlequin cosplay, and she did that cosplay on the Friday, and I met her when she was doing her like Pokemon shtick.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. What about any of these Walking Dead actors? Did you meet like Philip Blake or Scott Wilson?
Yeah, I met Scott and Philip. They were my first photo ops. I think it was the Friday, because I remember Thursdays they didn't do any photo ops. So yeah, they were my first, and I was pretty into The Walking Dead at the time. I was pretty pumped for the Governor. I thought he was a great actor.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and then on the Sunday I met Gwendolyn Christine, which was pretty hyped for Game of Thrones.
Yeah, for sure. So that was pretty cool. I guess we can go all day with photo ops. Is there anything else lastly before we transition into the next step that you want to talk to about the guests specifically?
Uh, I guess like met Matt Ryan, and I wasn't planning on meeting Matt, and it
Right.
was one of those things like, oh, I might regret it down the line because I think he just did Constantine. I was like,
Again.
and then I just had like $50 sparing in my wallet, and he was like at his booth, and no one was, there's one person in line kind of thing. So it was one of those things where nice not to regret that photo because I don't know, he just kept canceling every time he tried to come back to Calgary or Edmonton,
And
or I
since
remember he tried
then,
to come back
yeah,
8 times and he canceled.
he,
So
he
one of
can
those,
yeah, he's canceled so many times since then. I think like when we talk about the word regret, man, the Calgary 2015 Expo was just riddled with regret for me. There's so many actors that it would have met, and a lot of it was due to like inexperience conning. A lot of it was due to the fact that I only went there for a day. But hey, you got to start somewhere, right?
it's one of those things like, oh, that actor might in something you might like one day. So it's one of those things where you kind of gamble, and it's like if you already know who they are, it's like why not just get a photo or something.
Yeah, exactly, and yeah, for sure. So I think the next transition was like at the time I found like just the cosplayers, and I'm not talking about like Jessica or Yaya Han. I'm talking about just like the attendees, the cosplayers. Do you remember any cosplays that you ran into that stood out really good?
Yeah, that obviously he would. He's been there. He was there for pretty much every year we were there, but he was. I don't know the character is from Lord of the Rings.
Is it?
That massive armor suit that he walked around in.
I always get them confused. Isn't it like Sauron or Saruman? I know Christopher Plea plays one of them, but they're like you have the two main antagonists, and their names are so similar.
Yeah, I remember I actually talked to him finally one year. I think it was 2015 or 2016. And he said how he spent like over 1,000 hours or 2,000 hours making that cosplay, and it was just unreal because like you'd always see like people like taking photos of him, and it was pretty impressive. Like that's like true cosplay. I think like when you dedicate all your free time making cosplay like that, and people really take notice and appreciate it.
And do you remember this? There was this one like
Uh,
Warhammer kind of
yeah,
guy
there's
here.
yeah, I think there's a matching blue guy, right?
I don't remember, maybe, and I
I
think they've been
remember
to.
seeing a duo of them, and they'd never go inside. They'd always be outside. That's when they used to like all the cosplayers used to hang out outside and just take photos. It was a lot of fun being outside.
Yeah, there was this group of like Ninja Turtles or whatever that were there that like
Oh yeah,
yeah, it looked pretty good or whatever. I guess that was the year we didn't even met. We didn't meet for like this 2015. So like by the next Calgary Expo we knew each other. But that's the
yeah.
year I met your sister or whatever. Quickly asking for a photo of cosplayer.
That's pretty wild that you ran into her.
Yeah, I remember actually. I think I don't remember what year it was. I'm pretty sure it was the 2016. Maybe not the 2016, but we were at a con one year, and I was showing you the photos, and you were running through
Yeah,
them, and you're like, "Hey, wait a minute, that's my sister." And I'm like, "Oh, snap! I knew your sister beforehand." But
yeah. I
yeah,
think it was when we were in. I think we were sitting in Seattle or something, going through old photos.
yeah, I don't remember what it was. I always thought it was a lot earlier. I don't remember. I think it would have been before I crashed at your place for the first time, which I believe was the 2017 Expo.
Yeah,
Yeah, because
2017.
yeah, because 2016. So I think it was before then because I didn't know your sister really at the time. I will say the when you're like the level of detail in some of these costumes at the time was pretty great or whatever, especially if I don't know if they're like that now, but we can get into that in a later chapter when we talk about the comparing them. But yeah, there are some really good cosplays for sure. Yeah,
Yeah, that was say for 2013 to at least 2018. There's a lot of cosplaying and a lot of
Well,
being
I think what it was when you look at 2015 is like you had this catalyst of like, well, maybe not catalyst of the MCU, and just like geek culture was like through the MCU started to rise, and then by the time 2012 rolled around when Avengers came out, it was just like, here we go, and then like a couple years later, like more people started to embrace it and everything, and they were when you got to the 2015 Expo, you had everybody who was like absolutely massive who was into this. You also had the one cosplayer who's also passed away. I think he passed away like a couple years ago. He was like known as like Edmonton's Logan, or like he rocked a
yeah.
really good Logan or whatever. But yeah, like I think we can go all day on the kind of the cosplays. So then I guess a good transition would be how we've been kind of talking about it throughout this entire time about how this con, specifically the 2015 con, compares to like the modern con or modern Calgary Expo specifically. You did mention it before, but yeah, Calgary was eventually bought out by Fan Expo, but during the 2015 it was still Emily Expo.
Yeah, I think it's become more of a market. Like it's all about making. Not saying it wasn't about making money before, but you could see the real passion behind. And it used to be Emily Expo before she sold it off to, or however that all went down.
Yeah, I'm not
Fan
gonna pretend
Expo.
to know how it happened or whatever, but it definitely I do say that like
It's not a traveling circus like Fan Expo is, where
yeah.
if one guest gets announced here, it's most likely going to happen at the six other cities or seven other cities.
Oh, they've been taking over. There's like a Fan Expo Chicago. There's a Fan Expo like they just bought all the Wizard Worlds, I believe, and now they also like are doing all the like Wizard World circuits also on top
Yeah,
of them. So they got like
yeah,
30, 40 cons, and yeah, it's just like sign a
it's fine.
contract.
It's fine for people who live there, but like they're not giving any uniqueness for other people to come
Yeah,
travel and attract that attention.
that's my problem. My biggest problem by comparison, like, and I think the 2015 Expo just in every aspect, the size of the layout of the con, the passion within the fans, the passion within the company, the guest list, it's all across the board was like the con these days just it feels corporate all the way from down up, like it's all crammed together, the vendors for example, and it's just not as overall appealing, and maybe that's just because we're talking about 7 years from this, 7 expos straight in a row, so maybe that just the burnout maybe is there a little bit. It's not as
Sure, they get
special as it
fatigued.
was, yeah, but like I do think the lack of just the generic, like I think I look at all these expos and it's kind of weird, like anytime if you were to not like take this year's Calgary Expo, we didn't go, and this was the first time we didn't go, but all the guest lists were like we didn't feel the reason to go, and that was the big thing, right? And
Yeah, and I live here. It's like 10 minutes away from me.
yeah, I think the big thing with the Calgary Expo and specifically modern time is just that like if you've never been to a Calgary Expo and you look at the guest list, it has a little bit of everything, and it's a great guest list if you've never been to a con. But if you're in our positions and we've been to so many cons by this point, it's a little bit meh. Like you've already met most of the guests that they come; they're all repeats now, and obviously there's something to be said about repeats. Like like if you don't meet somebody because you're not into a show, you might meet them later. But like all across the board, it's just if you've been to more than like 2 or 3 fan expos, you're expecting the similar lineup than every other year, right?
Yeah,
So I
exactly what it is.
yeah, and I would say like by today's comparison, like I would love to go back and have Emily Expo take control of everything again, or maybe just make like Fan Expo just needs to do something a little less corporate-y, right? Maybe just 1 or 2 unique guests per con instead of just signing on the thing. And I will say like there's been some good things about Fan Expo, like we've had some good guests, right? That I
Yeah,
don't think Emily Expo would have been able to get, or at least didn't get, but it's hard to say what could have happened if Emily didn't sell, right? So I mean,
Has there ever been a time where it's like when there was a fan expo, it's like, holy moly, I need to go to this con. Like, name one fan expo where it was like just screaming with like unique guests.
yeah, and that's the problem. I look at I was kind of salty about not going to Calgary Expo this year, and then I look at the Edmonton Expo lineup, and it's just basically all repeats from the Calgary Expo minus like the Cobra Kai cast. And it's only June, right? They're bound to announce at least a couple more guests, right? Hopefully.
Yeah, they I think Fan Expo really treats like Edmonton Expo as like a B tier expo, which I don't understand why.
I,
Like, I remember Edmonton Expo like exploding when they got the Big Bang guests and everything like that. Like, the
Stanley.
crowds were huge,
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
they're just like whatever. It's like, oh, Edmonton Expo, yeah, we'll slap something together.
It definitely feels that way with Edmonton Expo, Fan Expo, and it is sad. And I do think like you can just that would be a conversation for another day. But like,
For
yeah,
sure.
it's definitely that. I guess the last thing to be said is on on like compare like how do you rank this if S tier is like the one of the best cons and you're not the best but S tier, or D tier being one of the worst cons you've been to? Where would you rank the 2015 Calgary Expo?
I'm gonna be a little biased. I think I'm gonna rank it as an S tier, just
S
in
tier,
terms
right?
of the guests and the culture at the time. With I guess maybe it might be different for you, but going for all 4 days were very intense and like full of energy and always you were. I was always like just exhausted at the end of the day. It was like a blast, and I didn't sit down for 5 minutes. I don't think.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. For me, oh man, this is a tough for me. I'm not gonna give it an S tier, but I think in hindsight, I would give it an S tier if I was going all 4 days, if I was doing all
Right.
those photos. But because I only went the one day, but I'm also comparing everything else I did on the Calgary. But I think I'm gonna go with an A tier, even with the Stanley cancellation. I still think it was that good. It was an A tier expo, and yeah, that was just for one day, and it was just a blast. And I have absolutely no regrets about going or whatever. Yeah, I can't really.
Yeah, it's unique enough that you can always remember that at con, whether you go for a day or 4 days, compared to like many of the fan expos. They kind of all just blend together, and then you don't remember what year
Yeah, for sure.
some guests were.
All right. Well, that I guess concludes the review of the 2015 Calgary Expo. So for the next episode, we've been to like a little, I guess a little bit about us is probably should have been in the start of the episode, but we're gonna explain about us at the end of this episode. Me and Cody here, we did meet in 2016, and then we've been conning together for since then, basically. And almost one con a year. Obviously, 2020 doesn't count. There was no cons that year, but we've been to a good like 10, 15 cons together. Maybe not that many. How many do you think we've been to?
We gotta be close to 10 at least. With,
Yeah,
when you count all the aces and Calgarys and Edmontons, I'd
yeah,
say we're pretty much there.
yeah, probably. So yeah, we definitely have a lot of episodes to go through and a lot of discussion. Um, we don't know if we're gonna go chronological. We don't know if we're gonna go just favorite expos, but tune in next time and we'll talk about a different con. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I hope everyone has a great day.